One of the most vulnerable populations in our state faces significant barriers when reporting sexual assault.
Yeah, and this failure to protect report. KSL investigator Daniela Rivera spoke with a woman who said that when she reported a violent crime, police failed to fully investigate.
I would just wander up and down the street hoping for anything to change. It was just a really low point in my life where I was completely addicted to drugs, completely on the street and alone.
For more than 2 years, Megan slept wherever she could in Salt Lake City. She was vulnerable to the elements and vulnerable to bad actors.
There's this slogan that a lot of people on the street have, put out or get out.
In March 2020, Megan says she was exhausted and afraid of getting COVID from a shelter. She stayed with a former neighbor in this apartment building and crashed on his couch. Megan reported to police that he raped her that night.
I can remember the way the couch smelled. I can remember him laughing at me when I told him what he did to me. I hear that laugh.
Megan isn't alone. Data from last year shows 1 in 5 Utah patients undergoing a rape exam reported having no permanent address. And while most sex crimes don't get reported to police, advocates say unsheltered women are even less likely to come forward. Some fear retribution from their perpetrators. Others are preoccupied with finding food and shelter, and many don't trust law enforcement.
Why would you trust a system that has already let you fall through all of the cracks?
Wendy Garvin leads Unsheltered Utah, helping people without stable housing get back on their feet. Violence is a key reason many are here in the first place. According to the Utah Office of Homeless Services, the number of women seeking a shelter bed or other services as they flee domestic violence reached 1,023 in 2021.
And then once she's on the street, she is subject to more violence and more assault. Who needs water?
Garvin says she hears about attacks on unsheltered women several times a week, sometimes daily.
Take 2.
She says women with untreated mental illness or addiction are especially vulnerable. So are those who turn to sex work to get by.
There's a stigma associated with people who engage in sex work and an assumption that they can't be sexually assaulted, which is just not true.
You got raped last night?
Yes.
By who? Do you know this person? Is the person still inside?
Megan says she wanted to be honest when she made a report to these Salt Lake City officers.
Okay, take a second.
She told them she was a sex worker, but in body camera video, she says she didn't offer or consent to sex with the man she says raped her.
I still have the right to say no. And it's really hard to consent when your face is in a couch.
But she says officers focused on her circumstances.
Megan is homeless. We just barely started having a conversation. Okay. She said that she was squatting in this.
I wasn't squatting.
Megan went to the hospital for a forensic exam that day. A week later, she says she was still distraught and on meth when she was arrested for nearly hitting an officer who pulled her over in a traffic stop. In prison, Megan says she got sober and filed a complaint with Salt Lake City police. In this draft she shared with us, Megan writes her experience reporting to them left her feeling belittled, shocked, alarmed, and worthless.
Go in that basement apartment.
She says it wasn't until after her complaint, almost 2 years after police took her initial report, that officers formally interviewed her and then questioned the suspect. He insisted what happened was consensual. Police later sent the case to prosecutors, but he was never charged.
And I know I told the police that I was a working girl for a minute, and then they just acted like it's just the switch is unreal.
Megan insists investigators could have done more. She points out there's no indication they tried to collect a condom she told them about.
He wore a condom.
Or that they went to interview someone she says she confided in just after the assault.
I'm on parole and I'm doing great, but guess what? They screwed up.
We took her complaint and we looked at it and held it up against our policies and our procedures and our expectations of how officers investigate these very traumatic sexual assault cases.
Salt Lake City Police Chief Mike Brown told investigative producer Annie Knox that an internal review did not sustain Megan's allegation of bias.
When a crime's occurred, and we investigate it, and we bring those resources to bear and to support the victim.
He wouldn't talk about the details of her case, but said his officers take care to treat everyone with respect.
It doesn't matter where they sleep, on the street, in a house. If they're a victim of a crime, we want to be there for them.
But Garvin believes more needs to be done to stop this violence. She says she's asked repeatedly to meet with the police department.
They are aware that my biggest concern is that sexual assault is on the rise, violence in the camps is on the rise.
We need to have this conversation about how we treat our homeless population because they're the most vulnerable.
Salt Lake City police say strengthening ties with this community starts long before a crime is ever reported. And they told us they work every day to forge these relationships, but the department would not allow us to tag along with them and show you what that looks like. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual assault, there are resources available through Utah's 24-hour crisis line. Mike and Deanie.
And thank you, Daniela. We appreciate that.